the DCC game the first time. Oh, let's see.
It was.
Are there people still chat? Let me see. Uh, I'm trying to see. So people were speaking in the chat. Oh, okay, looks like they are. Okay, cool. Hey, folks. Yes, Hubris is going to be getting some love. So we're starting a new campaign next week, and I think we're pretty happy about it. Our friend here, Joe, has been pulling my leg to get that going.
Well, I just had, I heard about it, and there was just like an idea that I had that would be like,
Yeah,
a cool way to have fun with it.
that is real. It's going to be really cool. I'm really stoked about that. Normally, I would be all like, yeah, you gotta roll occupation, and maybe you'll, but at the same time, it's like the classes are so fucking cool that like I would hate to lock that behind an occupation roll.
No, I got a question. Are we going to start off as zeros in the funnel, and then
Yeah.
whoever passes kind of transitions into the classes, or
So that is the
how is that gonna
plan.
work
That is
out?
the plan. Given the way that you're doing things, I wouldn't be against just like having you start with a murder machine.
Okay, but you know what? I mean, basically, murder machines are just like made by anyone unlucky enough to be tossed into a truck and then turned into them by being processed in a factory for a week or so. So it's like the ones who didn't die in the funnel get captured, and then like the next time everyone else sees them, they're murder machines.
Yeah, that's perfectly true. And I like the idea of, having a 0 level funnel and then there being like a time lapse. Because that kind of helps me explain, oh, yesterday I was just a commoner. Now I'm a wizard with 4 spells, So, yes, same time slot. We do have a friend who is saying that he wishes that he could join and that he wants to play a murder machine. You'd have to fight for that murder machine slot, buddy. But
We could always do 2. It could be an all murder party,
all murder machine party. That's that actually sounds really fun.
And then something hiccups in them, and they have
awesome.
to start fighting each other.
Yeah, so 4 PCs per player. It depends. Like, so if we had like 6 players, I would say 3 PCs each. If we have 5 players, I'd say like 4. Yeah. It's just I'd say you probably need to have like 18 PCs total.
Spread the damage around.
Yes, because Lord knows they can't absorb very much of it. I'm looking forward to it though. My only concern is, one of you gave me Mike Evans's blog where he was his campaign notes. Was that you, Ark?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
After reading that, I'm kind of like, oh shit, I really have to tune up the Gonzo because, dear Lord.
You don't have to tune it up. That's just the way he does it.
Yeah,
but
I know.
It's one thing you can do with it.
I know.
And I think that's the spirit in which they're made. But there's no reason why it can't work the way it will.
Yeah.
I mean, you did a fairly decent job with Chalt. Though we got you off track because we set you off world building.
Yeah. Well, his is just like, and I'd say that, so I'm not too terribly familiar with the movie Heavy Metal, but or wasn't that like a magazine or something too? I don't know.
It was a magazine, and they took a number.
Oh, we lost
and strung them together.
Oh, okay.
You got to watch that movie.
I've seen some clips that are in South Park. And it's just like basically the bits where they're flying the plane, and then there's just like Boobopolis and all this kind of stuff.
It's very 70s.
But whenever you see that and I really think about it, I'm like, what, that does seem about as gonzo as his campaign diary, which is like you walk in on these creatures that are fighting each other, and they have the heads of chess pieces and stuff like that. I was just like, what? But it's really cool though. So,
yeah, I mean, if you're looking for inspiration, you can do worse than looking at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are tumblers on heavy metal stuff, and they basically took 12 stories that had nothing to do with each other and rammed them all together, which is like even crazier.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a product of the times.
Well, Eron says don't watch the sequel to Heavy Metal.
It's not really worth it now.
Doesn't that tend to be the case? But
there is a sequel?
Yeah, it's poor.
That might be why you didn't know about it. I didn't know that The Little Mermaid had a sequel until my wife told me.
It's not made for you.
Let's see.
All right. Well, now that the grandpa's talking, I'm gonna head off then.
Oh, why you hating? We're gonna miss you, man.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
I hope things go well for you.
I hope so too.
Well, so if you end up coming back around the time that you anticipate, then Matt was saying that he probably will as well, and so we should be able to pick up the Chalt game at that point, and we can see where things take us from there, y'all and your absurdly powerful characters.
Around mid to late April is when I'll be in A school, so I should have like access to the internet and all that by that time.
Yeah. That sounds about the same time, so we could probably anticipate being, go on that in May, probably, for sure. Unless something weird happens, but I'll be excited to get back into that because we can see what is going to happen with all of your characters. I just, I know we want to do the pyramid, the Black Pyramid, but I do wonder if Alaric is going to be able to be convinced to go into that with him and his new main squeeze.
Well, I mean, it'd be kind of cool if we had like individual downtime, or I don't know, something like between where it kind of ended and like where, kind of like I could see this sort of being like, 1 year later, and then,
Yeah. I could see that.
I mean, that character would have to have like his own separate life in the kingdom since he's practically having like a whole kingdom to rule alongside with the queen now.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be very now that he doesn't have any enemies very much either, since we took care of the big bad right in that throne room.
Yep. Although, I'm wondering if Zephyron can be convinced to not go into the pyramid sooner than a year, considering
My goddess has said I must.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Hayden says, would I be able to play on Sunday? I don't know. I tomorrow's gonna be pretty busy, and I just
Sunday is my Icefire game.
Yeah. I mean, definitely check the
That's
Discord.
just me. I mean, you've got a big pool.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, we've got a pretty big pool now, so just like you can just try and gather people and see what you got. This Discord's been growing quite a bit.
Are you running the West Marches game now?
Yes. I have assembled some people under the banner.
Okay.
And some of them are willing to go off into the great unknown. So
Well, neat. Oh, that's what you've been putting up uh, in the Discord.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got that going. I've got a lot of people that want to play, but as far as scheduling goes, they haven't been pushing it too much. But I feel like they'll get there. But I've already got some stuff planned for Monday. Interestingly, our normal Monday time slot that I usually use, so 6:30 Central, and for that, I don't know if it's like a proper West Marches game because I'm not doing the wilderness crawl part, just because I'm wanting it to be like just very time focused. Because the reason that I'm not going ahead with my Lion and Dragon game right now is just because of the fact that I want the Hubris game to be my baby. So the West Marches game is going to be very focused, like just dungeon crawls pretty much. And if they get the money and the time, and they get the level to do, to get a barony or something like that, they can do that. And like they can do magical research and all that kind of stuff, downtime, that's fine. But aside, like as far as the travel times and all that kind of stuff, like I just want to be able to do like a satisfying dungeon crawl within a few hours, and stuff. So that's the plan.
That's pretty much what I set mine up for.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I really love the wilderness stuff, but at the same time, I feel like I would rather do that if I had like 5-hour time slots, maybe, or something like that. But it just kind of drags kind of long. That's something I could do at a table in real life, but when it comes to sitting on the computer, I'm already on the computer for work all day. So I just like after running a game for like 3 hours or so, I'm usually ready to split after a bit. It just kind of gets kind of long at that. So, and I don't want to chop the dungeon crawl shorter, So that's the plan.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yes. So really all I have to do is build dungeons, and that's fun. I enjoy building dungeons.
So it's going to be on the Lion and Dragon
No.
server?
Some of the talk was spilling over on there, but no, I have a Discord just for random games.
Oh, okay.
And so I can share you. I'll share the link with you. But
Okay.
I'll make you a stream, bro. Not that means anything to you. Basically, I was meaning to start a streaming thing, where in like stream discussions where people can jump in on the Discord and talk, with me on the stream. But I haven't started doing that yet because every time I have Thursday nights where I can do that, Chelsea wants me to play a hentai game instead and stream that. It's censored, but she thinks it's fun to read them out loud.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, that is the trick. You've got a lot on your plate.
yeah, but it's fun though. It is fun. I'm really looking forward to this game. There's nothing quite like running your own dungeons that you've devised. And whenever I did my 5e campaigns, they were kind of short on dungeons. And whenever we did Chalt, it was kind of short on dungeons. We didn't really do a whole lot.
We got sidetracked.
Yeah, which is fine though. I mean, urban game is great too. I love urban games. So that was perfectly fine. But it'll be cool to get a lot of that energy out with Old School Essentials. Or really just, I was either going to do Old School Essentials or DCC, but I was thinking, well, at least if we did Old School Essentials, then, there's really not much to it. And the more people play and create their own spells and stuff like that, we can kind of build on to the setting and everything, and then just expand things as we go. I got the advanced rules, so it's got some of the stuff from first edition. which is pretty cool. I don't know if all of them are from first edition. Was there an acrobat in first edition?
There was an acrobat added in the Unearthed Art,
Oh, okay.
and it showed up in the cartoon.
In the cartoon.
Thief acrobat.
Oh, our friend Thoth jumped in the comments and said, "Thanks for being such a great DM." That is so kind of you. Thanks for being such a great player. Like, we had a great chemistry with our DCC group, and I'm like a bit of it was lost when Matt, stepped away for a while. A bit more is being lost, with you heading out. So I don't know if there's going to be a wild card left, because I feel like Ark, you're a very calculated player. Joe, you're a very calculated player. Thoth, I could just never predict what he was going to do, except that it was probably going to be something that's going to hurt somebody really bad.
Yeah, being able to have a mix between the two and having them together is always the best thing if you can manage it.
Yep. And then Matt always added a lot of dramatic chops, I would say, to add extra dimensions to it. And and Haven is the conscience of the group, which is desperately needed, because without that, there's just well, I would say that Zevran is conscience as well, but he has to be, so. Yeah.
Well, to some degree, I think so does she.
Yeah, true. So I'm looking forward to everything, I would say.
Yeah. Scheduling is your biggest trick. Good luck.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm mostly, going to be leaving the scheduling to them. I'm just putting out, because as it stands, my work schedule is very much like I set a few appointments, and other than that, I just make phone calls and do like paperwork and stuff. So it's very open. So people if they just tell me when they want to play, if they can get other people on board, we can make it happen. So that is the plan. But I thought that was a pretty neat module. I was glad that y'all figured out that you could just knock them over. Because those things are tough. Those ceramic golems. A D4 damage reduction combined with 8 HP.
A lot of risk in that.
Yeah, they're tough, but like whenever it's said in the monster stat, if they fall over, then their stuff spills out and they're decommissioned. I was like, oh, I love that. It's great that they built that into the monster. I highly appreciate that, especially whenever it's a tanky bitch like that. Because I mean, we could have round after round where technically no damage is delivered.
And you know what? It kind of plays into the Frankenstein thing. Like would be the reason why he has bolts in his neck to secure the top of the head.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
To
yeah.
make sure the fluids don't come pouring out.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones that were unfinished. They didn't have the bolts and they didn't have the top, so that's why they get decommissioned when you knock them over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea to include, especially whenever you're dealing with constructs, to have some kind of bizarre quirk about them that can be exploited.
Mm-hmm. Some way you could unplug them.
Yeah, that was one thing that was kind of cool about whenever we did Tower of the Stargazer, that you're technically, when it comes to there's, I don't know if y'all actually fought them, but you can get these like batches of blood that attack you, living blood. And if you encounter them, like you can't hurt them unless you burn them, like with a torch or something, or you freeze them.
Ew.
And because you just have to freeze the blood. And it was, it's. I think that stuff like that's pretty nifty. Even if it is kind of frustrating, it's nice because it's not quite that whole immune to non-magical, because that's just kind of like I mean it's useful as a kind of mechanism, I would say, perhaps, but I like whenever it can be dealt with in mundane ways.
Orthogonal means you approach it from a different angle.
Yes. I think that becomes very valuable. But I mean, I think that's why I like kind of old school play. It's because it's not just you pulling things off of a list. You know what I mean? But I've had a lot of arguments with people that they really appreciate being able to pull things off of a list, because then it's not just up to whether or not the game master is going to allow it.
Not everyone plays for a challenge.
I'd say it's maybe a different kind of challenge. Like I'm sometimes amazed by some of the things that so I have a power gamer in one of my groups. And actually I have two, maybe three. I have like three power gamers in the 5e game that I play in. And they are incredibly good at like finding, the weaknesses in the system, or like just finding ways to exploit those little things here and there. And whenever I was a player and I was trying to do that, I didn't really enjoy it that much. But whenever I'm running a game and they do that, there's usually one of two things that happens. If it's like something where they were clever and they were able to overcome something, and it's not a there's a certain way that it bothers me. It only bothers me whenever it's like you get like this is like just automatic. When it's automatic, that's when it bothers me. I guess is probably the way to say it. Whenever it's automatic and it's not a resource. So an example is like the warlocks can get the ability to read all written text and like interpret it. And that's one thing that like it just kind of boils my blood a little bit, just because it's just like there's never really anything that's going to be mysterious that requires consulting somebody or something like that. It just kind of like removes some of the mystique,
Yeah, but doesn't there's only like 2 or 3 incantations that a warlock gets, right? So they can't do that with everything. It's just a very locked in circumstantial sort of thing.
That's
right?
True. I think that they can change it once they level. Like I think they can switch.
Well, you know what? Why not just make it permanent that they can't switch it out? And that way you could say that, they specialize in these certain, this very specific area, but once they have it, there's no swapping it out. And that way you can get like a character who does specialize in something, but it's not really broken because it's really only 1 or 2 things that come up.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Like whenever you mention that, I was like, is the ability to swap it out basically in the fact that you get new things with the level up, is that supposed to represent that you kind of go back to your patron and like, hey, I know you gave me this thing and it was really useful, but I kind of want this other thing. Is that okay?
Yeah. You know what? I think that if you made it permanent, then that would really reflect more of the gritty old school kind of a pact. And
Yeah.
I think that you would hate the warlock less because, they're good at something, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I don't think that's really breaking the game, but it would say, hey, you know what? They have a specialization in something, and you know what? That happens sometimes.
Mhm.
But the fact that they get it and they can't swap it out. The swapping out part, that's where it gets kind of cheesy. That's where it's like, okay, I'm done with going through the tombs of the undead, so I'm gonna get rid of this ability that allows me to do radiant damage, and now I can do the one that lets me see in the dark or something.
Do you want me to reveal my hypocrisy?
Okay.
I've had players that wanted to change subclasses, and I've allowed it.
Well, I was going to say, Tasha lets you do it now.
Yeah, well, Tasha says your GM can allow these things. So
Yes.
I'm just like, do you think we never thought of that before? Like, what is the point of the giving us permission to do this? I think it's
Because
interesting.
some of them actually need to be given permission. I'm sure there's a lot of GMs.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Yeah, I have known a few that I think would probably be like, oh yeah, I guess maybe it's not that broken or whatever. So, I'm actually I have a 5e game that's going to be coming up eventually, and
Really?
yeah, but it's very specific. So it's like it's kind of it's on the surface it's going to sound like everything that I kind of rail against again. But basically no humans. It's no dwarves or halflings or elves. Nothing in
No
between.
humans?
Yeah, so it's entirely going to be
Or you mean-
monstrous. Monstrous
Oh,
and
okay.
monstrous and anthropomorphic. So there's
So it's going to be monstrous, and so basically like goblinoids and humanoids.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually using the Tomo Beasts. They have a lot of animal folk, bears and squirrels and all that. So I made this world that has no other common races and just filled it.
Yeah, no, it's basically that's basically how I'm going with this. So it's post magical apocalypse, and humans and all their ilk are basically extinct, and so all that's left are the monstrous races, and there's kind of some it's kind of tribal warfare kind of thing at the start, and things will get a little nutty since I'm pretty sure that none of my players are listening. It should be cool. You never know. But like basically all I've really plotted out for the history of the game is that, there will be like moments where their tribe is going to get messed with eventually. And then the people that created the magical apocalypse, their towers are going to reappear basically at one point. And so the archmage that was the progenitor of the apocalypse for the rest of the world, and his tower and his people are going to come back, and there's going to be a bit of a possibility for a kerfluffle, but it's going to be entirely up to them, because I don't have it in me to plan plots or anything, as bad as that might make me.
Bad?
Well, questionably, because I have had so nobody's really complained about it. But I have had like a player say, whenever we kind of talk about our styles, it seemed like they were kind of making a point that they had specific events that were going to unfold throughout our play.
Yeah.
Which some people really like. Some people really like that. I think it's because they want to engage on the character portrayal more so than.
Well, yeah. That's what bothers me about my homebrew. I told them they were going to go find a lost dwarven citadel, and it's as railroady as you can possibly get. And we are 2 years onto it, and basically chewed through two and a half groups worth of people, and I still have a core of 4 people who've hung on. I feel kind of bad for them. I'm trying to figure ways to unrailroad it, give them better choices and such. It hasn't been going well.
Well, if it's anything like what that module was, that for DCC, then like you have to build onto it and replace things.
Oh yeah, well, no, this is my design.
Oh, okay.
It's basically 50 pages of notes that I put together in 1991, and have been reworking as we go. And it's just, it needs to be hammered into small pieces and rearranged. We shall see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, if you have a core group, then they got to be enjoying it, I would say.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I know that I've never stuck around for a game that I didn't like for a long time. Like the one game that I often mention, the one that ended up with the unexpected PC romance subplot that consumed almost everything. I was pretty close to talking to the DM and saying, "Hey, this isn't really what I expected. Is that going to continue to be a big thing?" But I didn't really get the chance because, she just fiat killed my PC and booted me out of the server, and with no provocation, really.
Gross.
Yeah. It was sad because we had played before and we had a good rapport together. I had run a game for her and some other people, and then we participated in another game together before that, and it was all cool. So she was just saying that she felt like I didn't care about the game, and it's not that I didn't care about it. I just couldn't really do anything I couldn't add anything to it because my character is just this married old dwarf who is, kind of trying to make the world better and kind of like try and work his way through his PTSD and all this kind of stuff. And, then we're spending all this time with people flirting with each other. And what's my dwarf going to like contribute to like, these people flirting with one another?
Agency is important.
Yeah.
And no one player should be the star of the show.
True. That is true. Somebody said that in Tasha's you can swap your Warlock Pact feature as an optional rule.
Probably.
So it sounds like they're just like, you can swap whatever you want, really.
Pretty much. Well, no, that's what they're doing. They're saying you can. These are your characters. You should be able to build them the way you want them to be. The rules are made to balance. They're not made to straitjacket.
Yeah.
And no, that's not the way you'd like.
Yeah. So the reason I was okay with the subclass swapping is because what I've noticed is that whenever players are uncomfortable, like they don't like their subclass and they would like another one. Or even if it's the class, I mean, I would say that swapping the class would be weird, but whenever they have a subclass they don't like, if you say no, they're just going to suicide their character pretty much. They're just going to jump into the first meat grinder they see. And in 5e, it's really hard for that to land. So, it'd just be like somebody trying to flail into wood chippers that they can't fit into.
Yes.
It'd be kind of funny if that player's subsequent characters just wind up getting cursed.
Which will often happens simply because the player doesn't really want. So they keep futzing around trying to find the perfect character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, the fault is in you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing because one of my first characters I played for a long time was a multi-class character that I was really like super ready for the mechanics and everything. But for personality, I had him like this super edgy guy. You know, well, not edgy, but like I'm trying to think of a good fiction comparison. I guess like a gloomy Batman kind of guy. And then I sit at the table, you know, playing this character, and it was just, you know, boring as fuck. And, you know, for a while I blamed the mechanics. And then it was funny because at one point I was like, you know what? I'm going to kind of reinvent this character. So I talked to the DM and I was like, you know, maybe he wasn't really this guy. He's pretending to be him. And eventually, you know, he's not going to do that anymore. He's going to trust the group. He's going to reveal himself and act normal for him, you know.
That's nice.
And so that's what I did. And like, then I really liked the character. But at that point I had already also mentioned beforehand, hey, you know, I wouldn't be against this character dying at some point. And the DM was like, oh, by the way, you know, you get stabbed to death. And I was like, shit. So like, just when I start liking the character, which had nothing to do with the mechanics, you know, he fiat murders my character, which is how all of my 5e characters have ever died, is fiat. I want to earn a glorious death in battle and, you know, move on to the plains of Valhalla. Great way to derail a railroad, blow it up.
I've considered that too.
Literally explode wherever have you heard of Broodmother's Sky Fortress?
No. Oh no.
It's a Jeff Rentz Lamentations book, which, like, it has some interesting ideas in it, but like the best part of it's really just the compilation of his blog entries. But there's still, you know, like his talking about being willing to just destroy your setting, any setting that you ever make, was really kind of neat. Like, I think I was already kind of there whenever I read that, and so it resonated with me. I was like, oh yeah, you know, fuck my settings. But I think that whenever I had read that, if I had read that maybe a few months prior, then it might have saved me some grief whenever, like, the players had just finished you know, wrecking my second setting that I made. Because you know how players are.
Yes. Sneaky devils.
Yeah. overthrowing capitals and shit.
I haven't done that in a while. My old Masters campaign ended with them basically fighting an old empire and winning. It was quite epic.
Mm-hmm.
Took about 3 sessions to work through the final battles. I was quite impressed with myself, but the game was kind of West Marches in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the individual players barely noticed that the plot had resolved that way. I was happy. Sometimes you just do it for the love of it.
Yeah. Don't think of it as destroying your setting as much as witnessing history take its course.
Indeed.
Which
is the reason why when I finished my Dragon Heist, and I got to like 5th level, I blew up the inn.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
Nice. Yeah. It's always kind of fun to have just, you know, complete and utter chaos, just transform the setting. You know, I've had a few games I've done where there was some, you know, calamitous event that happened that I never plan them, but whenever they unfold, they tend to be pretty neat.
Did they give you that in Kyridian beta book?
You did, yeah. Slowly working my way through it. I haven't looked at it in a little while, but
one of the things I found contrarian about it, they say give the players home base and don't fuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
They should have a safe place, and it should not come under conflict. And I'm like, what? That's one of the best places to script.
Well, but they're talking specifically about West Marches, though, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean they're basically laying out. This is Orthodox West March.
Yeah.
This is how to do West Marches the West's way. You can do it any way you want.
I mean, I feel like that's a good standard to have, because anytime that there's anything interesting to do in the city, like, you know, that's what they're probably gonna gravitate toward, because like they're, you know, a block away from a decent bed.
Yeah, I thought I might cheat and just have like one safe place per zone as they progress, and then blow up the old one behind them.
That
Just for spite.
That could be an interesting meme. You know, at one point it's just like, oh, you know, they get to the next safe zone and they're like, oh God, the NPC we left back at home. No, they're certainly dead now. Darn you, Ark.
It could well be.
Oh. Well, we do have new players that are going to be playing with us next week, I hope. They
Cool.
haven't joined us yet, so yeah, I'm a little concerned about that.
Aaron, have you read the first edition DMG yet?
No, much to my shame, I started. I haven't gotten very far.
Really?
There's a lot of stuff that you've kind of touched upon that it goes into a lot of stuff, and you know, that's one thing that I kind of disagreed with the by the book West Marches thing, is like, don't have adventures in towns. There's like a random town event you know, generator.
Oh yeah.
And it's pretty cool. I mean, all the appendixes, I mean, you know, they talk about Appendix N is what people talk about now, but my favorite appendix was always Appendix A, the create a dungeon thing. And there's so many other things in the back of the book. You know, you get these people that are like, well, THACO was second edition. I'm like, moron, you've never read the back of first edition, the DMG. THACO is printed right there in first edition. And there's just so much there, you know. And there's this guy who like just writes these reviews like on RPG.net, and like he's giving the DMG 2 out of 5.
What?
I just have to laugh.
I'm really curious on what grounds that would be.
But I mean, you know, this is like something that had never been written before, and it's fun just to read it, just for the high Gygaxian of it.
There is a pretty Drive-Through RPG sells copies of it as PDF, but someone went through and actually put together a pretty nice history of the writing of the thing. There was also a Twitter thread for the Dungeon Master's Guide,
right? But
in
what's
Drive-Through RPG?
Drive-Through, okay.
In most of the classical things.
Is it by the Playing at the World guy? Who's that? John Peterson or someone else?
I'm not sure who's that one.
That's the one I always
There
hear.
was
Have you read
also
that?
Go ahead.
Playing at the World, that's like it's got like the history of everything, like, well, role-playing games in general, but D&D I think in particular.
I've heard nothing but good things about that. I just haven't read it, because, you know, so y'all have the luxury of having been in the hobby for a long time. I'm playing like, you know, massive game of catch up, and so I
think it's only like a 10-year-old book, something like that. 10 or 12.
So this is the preface there is by Shannon Apple, who's from RPGNet itself.
Okay.
The biggest one I found was a guy on Twitter talked about how he edited the book. Gygax would write it up and like on index cards, and he's the one who actually did the layout. It was a fascinating read. God knows where you'd find that now. I can't even remember his name.
It wasn't Tim Kask, right?
I don't know if he was credited in the book or not.
For the DMG?
Yeah.
Okay, because it seems like a lot of that stuff was pulled from early editions of Dragon, and then like from the strategic review. And I think that's why the DMG kind of seems so modular and buffet table to like a modern reader. And I've come to see that as a strength. I'm like, you know what? Take what you like from it.
Exactly.
And in some campaigns you might try some things and disregard the others and then mix and match. I mean, that's what he did.
That's I love that. I love that. Anytime that I've ever seen where you have these on and off switches that you can employ, because I've really never found a situation where I didn't feel one way or another about it.
Yeah.
So, like, just the idea that maybe that would have been left out. I mean, I probably would have ended up doing it on my own, but maybe I wouldn't have had some decent guidance on it.
Well, they all have had their ups and downs. There's not every edition of the Dungeon Master's Guide that comes out. There's always more. Very few.
Say what? Cut out.
I said there's always more.
Oh, it's cutting out again.
Ah!
Speak directly in your microphones.
I was saying that there's always more in the Dungeon Master's Guide than people know because very few people actually sit down and read the whole.
That is very true. That is very true.
Yeah, there's so much in it. What's funny is that like there was the Gygaxian warning that like it was only for dungeon masters, that you were supposed to forbid your players from reading it, and if you found out that your players did, that you were supposed to penalize them by like charging them in gold pieces or taking away like magic items or something, and you would justify it in game by saying that they were consulting with sages.
Oh God, that's clever. yeah. I'm gonna have to sit down and read it.
A lot of the modern players kind of just think Gygax was like this beast because he was like, some of the things that he says, it's like you would think, oh my gosh, he's so harsh to his players, but he was playing with seasoned war gamers and, Rob Kunst, who could, apparently he played like he would go into Castle Greyhawk and with one character, he would be able to get into these very deep parts of like, low levels, like, level 7 and level 8, just because he was such a smart player. So that's why, Gygax kind of played hardball. But he says a lot of seemingly contradictory things. Like he's like, never give them an even chance. But other times he's like, don't kill a player, don't kill a character. You want to find the right balance between challenge and reward. So
Yes.
I think a lot of it has to do. You have to judge the mood that he's in. There's kind of an art to reading Gary.
Some people would probably consider that a fault, but I think it's interesting.
Well, there's every kind of dungeon master, and there's every kind. Finding the right table, it works on both ends.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
Yeah, I have no idea how to find that anymore.
How to find what?
The guy who edited the first Dungeon Master's Guide for.
Oh.
It came out by the time it came out, it was reviewed in Dragon Magazine 16. So it was out there before most of the magazines had actually kicked in. I remember Gary used to write a lot of columns before they kicked him out.
They kicked him out?
Pages from the Siege. Well, he had a falling out with his wife.
Oh.
She got controlling interest in TSR, took the company.
That's right.
Wait, wasn't that Lorraine Williams, the Buck
I don't
Rogers
know her name.
heiress? I don't know if he married her, but I think she convinced the Bloom brothers to sell their third shares to her, so she wound up getting 2/3 of TSR.
Yeah, it didn't end well. But that was then. We moved on.
Yeah. You know, I'd say that the hobby's in a good place right now.
Indeed.
You know, I do wish that some of the new blood would you know, be open to just pure murder and mayhem and all that kind of stuff, but
They are.
they are.
Just not all of them.
Right, right. I just wish proportionally it was a little bit higher, because I would say that out of the players that I've had, most of them don't seem to be terribly interested in going backward, if you know what I mean. Most of
There's
them.
a lot to do right now.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
I mean, your opinions and such about Fire, but they are well informed because you've actually spent some time playing it. A lot of the new ones haven't. And even those who have, a lot of them haven't played with good DMs.
Maybe.
It takes a while.
Yeah, I mean, I still have to. I'm still trying very, very hard to up my game because.
You're a very excellent DM.
Well, I appreciate you saying so. I still like. I was. You know, my confidence took a hit after the last couple of weeks, but you know, I think I just learned a lesson about modules. So that's probably.
It wasn't you, though. I mean, you know, it was.
Well, I mean, I still didn't. I didn't question it enough. If I would have questioned, I would have been like, you know, I just didn't go through it through the eyes of the player, like, you know, like I needed to. Like I thought more of like, you know, what kind of encounter is this going to provide? What kind of encounter is this going to provide? I didn't think about like how it strings it together, and so I just had some blinders on.
Yeah,
And,
it's easy to overtrust your material.
Yeah.
God knows I still do that.
Brad is making fun of me in the chat.
Which
Oh, the stream chat. Stream chat's still
are
going.
we still streaming?
Yeah. Should I have stopped? Sorry.
No.
I'm
I would have been more circumspect about
people will probably, they honestly will probably find the post game discussion more interesting than the game element, just because, you know, gameplay tends to be kind of slow.
Perhaps so, but it's a bit meandering. Hopefully they'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
Play games. Play lots of games.
Yes. You know,
Find the ones you like.
and I would say even if something looks like you might not like it, maybe try it if it's not like a huge buy-in. Because, you know, even though I don't think Morkborg is a perfect system, or like, you know, the things that come with it, I think it's pretty neat. And I didn't think so originally.
It wasn't quite as nearly like automatic murder as I maybe was expecting it to be.
Well, so it is very uncharitable for players, you know, because it's like you have a 40% chance to hit things and a 40% chance to avoid things by default.
Right.
There is the damage reduction if you're lucky enough to have armor, and that really, really makes a big difference. And also the HP roll, because you know, if you get to 0, there's a 25% chance you instantly die, and then there's like a 50% chance that you eventually die, like within a couple hours. and then there's like a 25% chance that you wake up and you're okay. And then if you
Well, I
get to
guess
negative one, you're just dead.
I was going to say that's kinder than a lot of systems.
Yeah, it's kinder than Moldvay.
And some of us had damage reducing armor too, so I guess that's not the case with other characters.
Not normally. It's so it's based off of your class, I think. But then again, I think
guess
you can
the
also
class.
spend money. I think you can also spend money.
Mm.
But like,
I don't think any of us did.
Not this time, no.
Yeah, that thing is really useful for just getting a game going really quick without having to worry about it. But you do roll money, and you can buy some things, and it can be more survivable. But really, I think the most deadly part of it is probably the module, and this module was not quite so deadly. I think this module was just kind of like just a fun environment, perhaps. Like, I don't know from y'all's perspective, but whenever I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. But I mean, then again, there's some lore stuff that you don't really have a way of finding out. So I always hate that, personally.
Well, one thing that I thought was really funny that was just a pretty cool coincidence was the ravenous, rotund woman that took the knife to the throat of the thing that made her even more ravenously hungry.
Yeah, that was a great development because whenever you picked up the knife, I hadn't really thought about it because I was just to me it was just kind of like a throwaway item. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat or whatever. But then whenever you picked it up, I was like, how is he gonna figure out what it does? and
Right.
And like it just never dawned on me that it would be used in that way. So it was just very poetic. It was very poetic.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I had lost the other sword, so I was like, "Uh-oh, maybe I might need to use a magic weapon on this foe." And I had it seemed like it was magic. I just didn't know what the power was. So I'm like, let me throw it and see what works out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is someone who's an eater. Let me throw it right in her throat.
yeah, it was great. It was great.
It was.
There's a lot of I love when stuff like that happens. I don't know if that's why they put that in there. I don't think they expect you to use it because it's just sitting around in some muck. That like I said whenever we were playing, I was like, there's not a whole lot of incentive to really push through that unless you're really persistent, and y'all happen to be really persistent.
Well, it was the nature of the game we were playing too.
True.
But yeah,
I really like dungeon design where there's things where it's hidden and not just anybody is supposed to find it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
basically like if you happen to do these correct things, then you'll find it. But it's not something where it's the expected average experience.
Yeah, so if y'all well, actually I think I've already asked y'all this, but have y'all played Sailors on the Starless Sea?
no.
Well, I don't know if I want to
I
spoil
think
it.
There's something like that, right?
Yeah. I'll go ahead.
right.
So, if it,
Well, I mean, maybe we'll play it at one point. So we'll find it, through play.
yeah. So let me use a different example. Well, okay. Shade Slayer. There's one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's one that you don't have to find. Yeah, I think that's how most of them should be. Just something that there's probably some that should be kind of more obvious. Like if you have like a tomb of an ancient warrior or something like that they would be buried with their weapon. That might be a little bit more obvious, but other than
Classical too.
Yeah.
First episode of Conan.
If you're chased by wolves and then you find yourself falling into this, stone cairn, and you see this throne, and you take the sword off the. You've seen Conan the Barbarian.
I like shit like that. And I have to say, this is something about the kind of newer generation of players that I've seen time and time again. When other people run games, they will ask play. No, well, I don't know if they ask the players first, but they actually know. So a player might say, "I really want to get this item eventually," and then the DM just gives it to them at one point. Oh my god! It kills me. It kills me. It's like maybe if we were playing 4th edition. And, it's kind of expected that you have magic items of certain calibers at certain points. I heard that was a thing. Y'all may be able to correct me.
I have no idea.
So my understanding was that they had like residuum, I think it was called. And they could like process down magic items that they found and then like repurpose them.
That I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard that there was also like, for the math to work right, you would need to have magic weapons of a certain or magic items of a certain power at a certain point in order for the math to work.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think 3rd edition was.
No, I mean the last thing I did with 4E, took a look at the retcon, essentially, where they said fix it, and it's like 200 and some pages.
Mm-hmm.
The player's handbook as printed is useless because it's all been amended and retconned, and you can't do it this way because it doesn't really work.
Was that why the Essentials version came out?
They tried a couple times apparently. It's a bit of a mess.
Yikes!
And I'm like, there are reasons why people have issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, 4E was the first one that actually had a lot of tools. And those were getting updated continuously. So a lot of people actually had a pretty decent job with it.
Had a lot of what? Sorry, it went out for a second.
Sorry, I talked too fast.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Like it just dropped that bit. I know that you said that they had a lot of work to put out, but what were you saying?
They had a lot of online tools.
Oh, okay.
That they propagated their materials through.
Yeah, I heard about that the character builder was actually really cool.
It was.
Yeah. Brad is making fun of me. Says, I've heard that was a thing. Didn't I send you a screenshot from one of the books about it? You always do this to me. Yes, I always forget when people have shown me things. But so if it was, like 4E, then I would understand, saying, that, yeah, you'll get that item. But like 5E is made where you don't need the magic item. Like the math is already there for the most part. Like the only thing I could think of is, overcoming certain resistances or whatever. But I've seen people like give all kinds of things that I'm just like, don't do that, like it just rubs me wrong whenever I'm a player, whenever I feel like something is just being given to me. I'm like, the game already gives me a whole lot. Don't add to it. Let me work for it.
Yeah, it is not your table.
It's not my table. You're right. But
I mean, you're going to find this, especially as you get older. It is a moving target.
Mm-hmm.
The group I played with stayed with basically 1st and 2nd edition issue for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
30 years. They ignored 3E when it came out. And they did fine. But that meant that when I left the group and tried to go somewhere else, no one knew what I was playing.
Well, let me ask you all this. Do y'all think that old school play is going to die eventually?
No.
Nope.
No?
Not at all. Nope.
I
Why
should-
would it?
Well, so I mean, there are people like me who are new blood that go back, and I've had a few on my channel that have like told me that much. But at the same time, I just
That old school would die.
yeah, well, no. People that they're new players who went to the old school because they liked it. But proportionally, I think that it seems very, very, very slight, and I just don't like. I guess maybe as long as we have the internet, it's sustainable. But
That's what made it possible in the first place.
Is
I
it?
mean, the first iterations were, 4E was coming out. People like it. There was Pathfinder. People could do. And then, like about 2010 or so, there was just this explosion of people who just said, "Screw this."
mm-hmm.
They went to Google Hangouts. They started a bunch of blogs that went to each other.
That's
The
true.
blogosphere came out that time. All of that stuff. It was the internet that gave them connectivity for it.
Right. I think that was kind of in response to third edition being, taking the game in a very specific way. And it kind of left a lot of things that, old school did. And it was saying, hey, these are all these other things that kind of got left behind. And that's sort of what the OSR kind of brought up. So it was just a big grab bag of things that third edition didn't do.
At this time, third edition had gone to 3.5. 2010, I think, is when 4E started popping out.
Yep.
And that's when people got really feisty.
Well, I seemed to I really kind of started reading like around 2004, 2005, and then I played AD&E for the first time like in 2006. Now,
Impressive.
I had read. Well, here's the thing. I had read Keep on the Borderlands and BX, like the basic Moldvay, and probably the Menster one, like in the early 80s. But I didn't have anybody to play it with. So I had read the Keep on the Borderlands. I had the Monster Manual. So I kind of was exposed to D&D like when I was a kid, but I never actually played the game with other people. So I had read the Endless Quest books, the Rose Estes ones, Revolt of the Orbs,
Yes.
Pillars of Pentagon, and everything like that. So I was very familiar with all things D&D, and I read the Moldvay basic, and I think I had the Frank Menser basic as well. I just never got around to playing it. And then in high school, my first fantasy role playing was Warhammer. So that was I didn't actually play D&D until much later, which was kind of funny. I mean, I had read the Lone Wolf books, which were so good. Has anyone else read them?
I think I have actually. But like,
Not Lone Wolf and Cub, but it's basically like the choose your own.
Yeah.
It's more like the fighting fantasy ones, and they were just so good. So I mean, I did everything as a kid but play actual D&D. I mean, I had the books, I read the books, and I played Warhammer in high school, and I did the Lone Wolf books, but and like Marvel superheroes, Top Secret, Heroes Unlimited, played those in high school.
it's a very good pedigree. I got my I got my blue box in junior high. When I got to high school, I couldn't find to play with, so I basically started a gaming club at the high school.
Blue box
kinda on
being the Holmes box, right?
Yeah.
The Holmes book. Okay. Now, that was basically. Go ahead.
I had I wonder now how it all came about, but there were actually I had Epic Illustrated, which was a comic, and episode issue 3, they had an extended article about Dungeons and Dragons. And then my mother had to a games magazine, which was like all sorts of games. And they would cover the D&D thing as it was coming up. So I knew about it. And I asked for it for Christmas, and my parents really came through.
Yeah, that's one thing I was meaning to ask. Like, we talk about RPGs a lot, but board games and stuff like that are other things that like I'm sort of trying to be interested in again. Like Dave Trampier co-designed Titan, which is one of my favorite board games. Has anyone ever played that?
No.
No? Oh, it's good. It's tactical and strategic. And basically it's a player elimination game like Risk, but it kind of, it does get rid of the way where you could play Risk in bad faith and just decide to gang up on one player and eliminate them. You can't really do that in Titan because it's an abstract game board, more or less. But there's definitely different strategies. And in Risk, there's a tactic where you can win by not attacking a lot or just, saving up all your armies in one territory. You actually get stronger by attacking in Titan as long as you win the battles. So it has to do with moving. It's you recruit based on land. So creatures that are native to a certain land can recruit one of the same, or if you have 2 or more, you can recruit the next tier of power for them. So it's really cool. And then when you have battles, it's depending on which terrain you're in. And natives to that particular terrain type have certain advantages. Like they can move through like a particular hazard that non-natives can't. Or there's other things. So there's this tactical play, and then there's this strategic play, and it's really fun.
You say it was.
And there's Dave Trampier.
You said it was mythology themed, or is it fantasy?
It's basically
about angels.
D&D themed.
Oh, okay.
It was basically co-created, and art. The game board and the tiles were designed by Dave Trampier, and he's, my favorite D&D artist of all time.
Yeah. Do you ever read the Collected Wormy?
No, just bits and pieces.
You can find it online in places. It's an amazing thing. And then it just stopped, and he left.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently he wanted to have, I guess he was promised that it would be collected and would be made into some kind of a book by TSR. And then I guess Tim Kask or whoever said it wasn't going to happen. And then that was the final straw.
A lot of bad blood.
Yeah. As is bound to be when you have a bunch of men doing hobbies like this. But, here we are. 5e is going gangbusters. OSR is...
Yeah.
Whatever you may say about how terrible it is under quarantine, it's a good thing for role-playing games.
Yeah, honestly. I don't know how I would be doing without it, really. I had probably a month where I just wasn't able to play anything because I was too sick. But other than that, gaming has really kind of kept me together, I would say.
Hey, one thing, do either of you play solo board games? Because I'm kind of, looking more into those again.
I never
just
have,
to see.
But I've seen, I saw somebody recently do, I think it was called Call to Adventure, something like that. Maybe that's what it was. But he was using it. He was playing it, and then at the end of it, he basically like had a character concept for role playing games, but it was an actual board game. I don't remember what it was called.
I've tended to steer away from my one foray into board games was Freedom of the Galaxy, which was Avalon Hill's take on Star Wars, which was basically you set up like 40 star systems and each things to do, and a whole game took 24 hours if you ran it full. And it was impressive and expensive and scary, so I stayed away from board games after that. I love playing them with other people, though.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people I know who play them online.
I would love to play a game of Munchkin with people. Right now, it's just Chelsea and I most of the time in person. And another one that we love is Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Yeah,
that's a really awesome game.
It is. I've played that before.
Yes, we had this one where because it's like randomly what the situation is whenever the haunt starts or whatever. And one of them was where we couldn't speak. Nobody could speak until they found something in particular. And so you had to all communicate, with gestures and stuff like that in order to try and solve the problem. It was really interesting. And, then there's one where one of us ended up being a homunculus that was trying to devour the rest of the group. And it's just a cool game. It's a really cool game. I didn't, I really missed out on board games growing up because, we had Monopoly and we had just the real basic stuff. But there was just a wide world of games out there that I never really got into because I was too busy.
One thing that I used to have Risk. Well, I still do, but I used to get like 5 or 6 of the the different colors, and I would come up with different personalities or playing styles for each one of them. Like one would be super aggressive and one would be really defensive and one would play a certain way. And I would just kind of, use different ways of distributing where they start out and just see which tactic and which philosophy would work the best and everything.
Impressive.
I don't know.
Have you,
I got to...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I got to learn a lot about Risk and how to play, so it was entertaining for me.
I've always wanted to play Diplomacy.
I've only played it with more than 2 people, maybe once, and it was all right. I think I needed to have played it a little bit more. It was in high school, and, things weren't really obsessed over and made sure we played it exactly right. So there was a lot of things that we played in high school that were just kind of played and, it was what it was.
Well,
but you know what? Axis and Allies was a really fun game that we played. That was serious business.
Well, even just getting a good taste is a good thing.
So what's Axis and Allies like?
It's basically set in 1942, and you could play it with anywhere between 2 to 5 players. You could, one player be the Axis, one player be the Allies. Or if you have all 5 players, it's basically one player's Germany, one's Japan, one's the US, one's Russia, and one's Britain. And basically, Russia is the weakest one, so it's asymmetrical. Pretty much Russia has to hang on and keep Germany from taking over. And Great Britain is kind of in the middle of putting pressure on Germany and landing on the continent. And you could do that, with winning North Africa with El Alamein, or try to mess with them in Europe somewhere else. And then U.S. is strong in terms of military and economic, but they start off the game kind of far away from everything else. So it's really an interesting way to play. So pretty much the Axis can win if it does a lot of damage in the first couple rounds. So that was a fun game that we played in high school. I remember we played like we started playing like at 6:00 on like a Friday evening, and then we played all the way through like the next morning. And one of my friends who, like, I guess he played as a kid with like this guy who was like 10 years older than him. He was like boasted about his Axis and Allies prowess. He wound up losing because he just started falling asleep at the table. It was great. And he just started making mistakes. And then we redesigned it. We basically made it so 3 players could play 3 relatively equal powers. So it wasn't really World War II anymore. We just kind of used map in the different, because different territories have much different point values, and you could get like production on it and build factories and that sort of thing. So we made like Madagascar one of the capitals for one of the 3 relatively equal powers. So I was already kind of messing around with tweaking game rules back then.
That's good.
Have you designed it?
What's that?
Have you designed any games or tried to?
I just wound up like hacking a lot of stuff. Like, do you remember in Spies Like Us, they wind up negotiating with the other Russian spies by playing a combination of Trivial Pursuit on a risk board? Mm-hmm. And every time they get like a question right, then the other side has to like remove some missiles off the map. So what I always loved trying to do was take like different board games that I had and kind of like make them like this amalgam.
That's neat.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I've heard really good things about Axis and Allies. Just never had the opportunity. I do have some people trying to get me into wargaming. Which I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I'm willing to try. I'm basically like, you provide an army and I'll play, because I'm not gonna.
Fair.
You know what? I think when you put that out like about a month ago, everyone talked about buying miniatures and stuff like that. I don't think you need miniatures at all to war game. Mm-hmm. You could use little chits of paper and stuff. The battle system just used like little bits of cardboard, printed cardboard. So, what I'd love to play is get to name level domain play and just use chainmail.
Mm-hmm. So doesn't chainmail have it where it's just like you just roll a d6 to see if you won the fight?
No, you roll lots of d6s.
Lots of d6s?
And basically, you have to hit a certain number and index it against, what kind of troop type you're attacking and what kind of troop type you have.
Oh, okay.
And basically that tells you how many hits you have. So, that was an erroneous and simplified to the point where it's like not true anymore. Probably by somebody who never played it. And like my friend that I tell you about, he probably heard it on a YouTube video or read some kind of message board, because they're like the people that explain to you, oh, well, Gary Gygax developed D&D from war games. And they just leave it at that. And I'm like, okay, and what about the war games? it's like, well, don't you know? And right there,
Oh,
you
dear.
can tell that they don't know anything. They heard it from somewhere, and they're like, well, it came from War Games. Oh yeah, it came from War Games, and you know what that means? It's bad. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah.
So much better now. We fixed
But
it.
I mean, it's just like they're just parroting what they've heard, and they haven't done independent study to really find out what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And that grieves me the most. I mean, I could much more respect someone who wants to play story games, or someone who says fourth edition was the best, and they could actually give me reasons why.
Yeah.
Because they played fourth edition and they played old school, and if they could say they still love fourth edition better and they can give me reasons, well, then I could respect that a lot more than someone who just got their opinions from someone else.
Yeah. I've got a few friends on Twitter that they've talked about like their great experiences with fourth edition and how they really like this thing or that thing or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds interesting. I think that like there seem to be a lot of neat things in there.
Oh yeah, there wouldn't be 5e without 4e. People forget that.
Yeah. I mean, people don't realize that getting a hit die on a short rest is basically a healing surge. From what I understand.
There's
Well,
a lot of little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
think fourth edition as a game system isn't bad, but as a whole, when you're playing it's not D&D. You know, I think it would be so much more appropriate for like a superhero team to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would be perfect if you took that system and made the X-Men Adventures in the Danger Room, and you used the 4E system for that.
Yeah, I could. I mean, they basically from what I understand, got rid of like the spell system as we know it. Correct? Isn't it just powers?
Not to my knowing.
Well, I mean, every class has daily powers. Every class has encounter powers.
There's that.
Every class. So basically, it made every class a wizard.
Yeah,
is one way of explaining.
Yeah. So like even the fighter would have like an at-will cleave power. And that kind of thing. So that's so the reason I thought that that was what they did with spells was because I have a game that is 4E derivative. Well, it's a derivative of a 4E derivative. So like it's called King of Dungeons, and it has kind of like the same formula. Like it gets rid of armor class, though I know that 4E had armor class, but it gets rid of it, and it's just reflex, fortitude, and will. So you just use your saving throws.
Yeah.
And
is that kind of like a truncated 13th age?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it has it doesn't have like at will powers, like it's attacks, but it still has like features for different classes, and it's kind of confusing at first looking at it, but like it puts the spell system. There is a spell system in there, so but it's like I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe. But it looks really cool. I've been wanting to run it sometime, but it doesn't seem to be as heavy on situational modifiers, or not situational modifiers. Like ability effects, I guess you might say. That I heard was kind of an issue with fourth edition was that like there would be a lot of I have to consider that I have a +1 because of this ability that has, this aura thing. Like there were a lot of auras and stuff like that. That's kind of the stuff.
Things you can stack and all that. I had one player who played a magician. Proud of that. He felt he was completely invulnerable to attacks because of the way his skills and powers all stacked up.
Mm-hmm.
At least physical.
That's the key word.
It was about that time. It was about that time that I decided I didn't want to play 4E anymore.
Yeah, if there's ever like I don't have a problem with this thing ever again kind of thing, then it's just not great for me, That's one of my the things I dislike about passive perception is that if you allow feats, that +5 that you can get from observant can really, push it over the edge to where it's like you're going to notice almost everything. Unless it's just like absurdly.
Not if the lighting is poor. Not if they're not getting enough sleep.
That's true, but
there are things.
But I mean, that disadvantage is only going to knock it down 5 for passive. It doesn't stack as far as I can tell, because I did try and make that point of, well, it can stack, it's just another -5, and then some people were like, nuh-uh, so I looked it up and I was like, oh, I guess not. And I was just kind of like, that kind of sucks. Like if it's dark and you're going quickly, then it should be twice as hard to see, but it's just it's a binary. It's it's either you have disadvantage or you don't, or you have advantage. I guess it's like a trinary, whatever that might be.
Depending on how fast they go, it's a disadvantage is that way, yes.
Yeah.
But the base DC that they're going against, like if you have a DC of so much, their DC is like 25 because they're all stacked up.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is like a trap and it's like 17, and they're using dark vision, which is dim light, which is -5 right off the top there, and they're running without paying attention, that's like a stack of 10 right there.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that the argument is that disadvantage can't be stacked ever. Like, so that even
disadvantage can't, but the DC can be shifted.
It can. That's true. And I wish I would have thought of that. All right, 5e is fine. I just need to hold that shit against them, and they're going to be like, why can I never find traps? Could you imagine if you keep adding dice to advantage and disadvantage, roll 5d20 and keep the lowest?
Let's not.
Yeah, I think that would get ugly very quickly. I think that they would prefer having, just a little 1s and 2s and things like that. All in all, 5e ain't bad. It's not bad. I think it's easy to hack to be something that I like, but I think for me,
the core mechanic is 2 pages.
Yeah, that's true.
1 if you use a small enough font.
I've never had a problem with 5e. I just see it as a great compromise edition, and I've seen what the splat books can do to 3x, and it's just way too many abuses that could happen with it. And 4th edition, to me, it's not what I expect when I play D&D. There's a certain amount of expectations, and 4th edition is too far away from that. So when 5th edition came along, I'm like, okay, great. It has the old school stuff, and it has enough 3rd edition to keep, the other people that I play with regularly happy. So it did everything that I wanted. It's got the stuff that I like and enough of the stuff that, my Sunday guys like. So fine, we play that, and no one complains about 5th edition.
Let me ask you this: how would they feel Well, actually, I guess it's an interesting question to ask you. How do you feel about save or die mechanics?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm old school's my preferred
Right.
style of play. So
Right.
you know what? Play smart.
Yeah.
Play smart, and then if you die, roll up another character.
I
That's
think-
how you handle it.
I think that is probably, to me, one of the best ways to quote unquote fix 5e for me is just to put save or die back in there. You know, like they encounter you know, the basilisk. It's like, no, we're not going through that whole you know, it's petrify only if you fail 3 times or if you fail by more than 5 points, or I think that's how it works.
But here's the thing, that's all you have to do. I mean, 5th edition isn't so inherently broken that all you have to do is just change it. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people complaining about it don't realize it. It's like, oh, it doesn't have save or die. Well, make it save or die.
Right.
And, you know, I think one thing that I don't like about it is too much of the like the 4th edition text stuff where they make a lot of magic effects even Steven, like it's not save or die, and the magic is not swingy. It's a lot of things are kind of nerfed to make it more, you know, CR level appropriate and that sort of thing. And the thing that I like about old school combat and old school magic is the swinginess of it. That, you know what, the magic user is kind of a glass cannon, but if the magic user gets off that game-changing spell, then you know what, it could end the combat in a snap.
Yep.
And I like that.
Yep.
You know, it's very I really like asymmetrical gaming.
Yeah. The first time I played in a 2e game and a web spell ended a fight, I was like, holy shit. You know, because in 5e it's like, well, you get a strength save every turn or, you know, every round.
Yeah. Yeah, there's too many mitigating factors. Like, you know, some spell effects with 5th edition are kind of annoying like that, but that's why I go with control over damage every time. Well, you know, I do play a barbarian with levels of fighter, and he's all damage. But generally speaking, control is the way to go in 5th edition. You want to find opportunities to gain advantage and to make your foes have disadvantage. And otherwise, you want to, you know, web, slow, sleep, you know, just kind of funnel them into a corridor, you know, just all the tricks that basically take action economy into play.
That is true.
You know, disarm, grapple, blind, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. I also find that the attrition is just a little slow at the higher levels. Well, not when I say higher levels, I mean like 2nd tier, you know, like, because to me, third and 4th tier might as well not exist most of the time. But like,
when you say 2nd tier, are you talking like 4th to 7th, something like that?
Yeah, that range. I would say that, you know, like anything after 6th tends to be pretty the attrition tends to be kind of long, especially considering as far as, you know, they have so much health that they can get back through all kinds of manner of ways. They have tons of spell slots at their disposal. They usually have lots of features. By then they'll probably have a decent assortment of magic items, but that's fine. That's not really a big deal. But
but there is a segment of people who play at like 20th level, who play at 30th level.
Yeah.
Epic tier games.
Yeah, I mean, I know they exist, but
you think they're crazy?
I don't think I'll be joining their ranks. I think that I would probably go to a different system, but that's just because I feel like at that point, I either like the numbers would just have to be astronomically high, or it would just take so long, I would think, to resolve things that it just doesn't sound appealing. I feel like at that point I might want to just play phase rip or something.
Hard to say. I've not had a 5e table get past tier 2 yet.
Oh, I had my last 5e group. They made it to 14th. It was kind of at hyper speed though, because I was sure COVID was going to get me. So it moved pretty quickly. But and they were incredibly powerful. We had a good time, but it was not because combat was dangerous. Really, it was just because we had a fun group that really had a lot of interesting things going on. So,
my Sunday group actually got to, I think we got to 20th level, and then you don't get any levels beyond that, but you hit boons after a point where you would level. So that's what we did, and it was kind of interesting for a while. And I kind of brought up, let's start, coming up with our own, baronies and parts of land. But they were so used to 3rd edition and doing everything as a team that they all expected that, we would own this and run this piece of land together. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Everybody kind of go and do their own thing. You're strong enough now that, that's what you do. And they're like, what?
They don't have to. They can work together if they want.
Well, right, but they assumed that was the default. It's like they couldn't conceive in their notion that okay, now you're going to create a wizard's tower, and I'm going to go create a barony, and you're going to go found an assassin's guild in the city, and this guy's going to go into the mountains, and they're like, what? And I'm like, what about mass combat? And they're like, mass combat? I'm like, all right. If I want it in a campaign, I have to run it.
Yeah. You have to think about like how alien that is, to if you've never tried something like the closest I've really tried to do something like that was not so much domain, but as far as like mass combat, like I kind of created my own mini game that used kind of the D&D trimmings, and then just kind of like instead of HP, it was units, more or less. And I had them divided up into like battalions or whatever, and they were able to use like order the units, and depending on where the officers were, they could enhance certain units' potential to like have them reload like a trebuchet quicker, something like that, and it was really fun. And it was it was cool because you didn't have players like, I don't understand how these rules work and all this kind of stuff, and I'm scared, hold me, nothing like that. They were all like, oh, okay, so yeah, we're gonna do that. And I'm like, all right, you roll this, and we just it was a good time.
By the time you get to that level, they have to have some degree of faith in you.
Yeah,
otherwise they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, that's true. But whenever you talk about it online, there's usually somebody that chimes in like, is it balanced? It doesn't sound like that would be fun. That sounds impossible. It doesn't sound like it would work properly or whatever, People go into all that kind of stuff. I think people overestimate like maybe the what it takes to design, maybe.
I would imagine so.
Kind of like how I saw there was a guy on a Discord channel that I was on that was saying that he had never experienced an amateur a scenario written by an amateur DM that ever compared to one written by a professional designer.
Ooh,
cold. I was just like, why would you say that? It's like, for one, I have, personally, like I've played in some homebrew stuff that people created that was a lot better than some of the things that I've seen that were professionally done. But at the same time, if you look at like the module that I wrote, for people to consume, I spent like 4 months on that son of a bitch, and like I was meticulous with it. And whenever it comes to what you do for, just your regular gaming group, you don't have time like that, and you don't have playtesting typically, you just run it.
That is the playtesting often.
Yeah. Speaking of, that's one of the things I thought about springing that on y'all and seeing how that worked, but I was afraid it was going to take too long. Well, yeah, I was afraid it was going to take too long, and then it turns out that the little bit that we did here took kind of just about as long. Although the module I wrote has like has a few things that you can fight, but it's like you don't have to fight most of them, and there's only like one thing that's actually going to try and fight you for sure. And it's cool though. I think it's cool. Sometime maybe if like almost none of the regular players can come or something. I don't know. Sometime maybe we'll play test it.
Sounds fair.
Yeah. But you have to be in the mood for spooky. Well, I'd best head out and see if my wife is still awake. I told her that I would hang out with her after the game, and I told her I didn't think it would be a very long game. So,
dude,
I might be in trouble.
Hopefully
hey,
not.
Can you send me a link to the
Yeah, Discord?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll send it
to you. How many players do you got already? And when do the game times seem to be shaping up to be?
So we have you remember our normal Lion and Dragon game time. That's what I have for the first session.
Okay.
I've got some players that are trying to play early in the day because they're European. And then for me, I'm
like
basically
like morning.
Yeah. I'm basically trying to my schedule's pretty damn open, so it's just kind of whenever cool. People contact me and tell me that they want to try and set something up. I'm just kind of being pushy about it this first time.
Right. Well, until I hit Mega Millions, I'm going to be out of the Euro games in the morning. So
I get it.
But you know what? I that's kind of part of the reason why I sort of chose to more or less retire the Fool. Maybe he'll come out of retirement, but he did achieve sort of his goal in life. And I've never had a character actually do that. Because I've never really cared enough about a character other than just he was sort of the eye guy, and I didn't set out to be like a story gamer with him, but it just, what?
This campaign grew a story.
Yeah, and I think Matt really kind of rubbed off on me, and I saw how he really got into his character, and I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll do it, and it could be fun that way.
Yeah,
and so I think just everybody contributed to the game, and I kind of played it a little bit differently than maybe I normally would have. So, but you know what? And then I just kind of had the feeling that we'd been we've been playing smart, but we also got some good rolls. And you know what? Maybe if we do go into the Black Pyramid, or maybe if we do go into the desert again, we might run into something really bad. And you know what?
Yes.
I'd rather do it with another character that I'm not quite so attached to. You know, settling down with the queen doesn't seem like a bad end game for this character.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's funny. I kind of haphazardly made my own random encounter chart for the desert, because there wasn't one included in the book, and I didn't really realize it. But looking back at it, I was like, you know what? There's like most of the outcomes here are fucking astronomically bad. I was like, I need to tweak this a bit, because I always want there to be a good chance of bad in this kind of game, but not that bad, all that
Right.
That often, because there's some horrible shit, and it definitely has no chill with save or die. So that might not be a bad observation on your part, but it's a great honor to have been the first DM that you've done that kind of character.
Yeah,
Development.
it's basically I retired the character on my terms. That was a first.
Yeah,
But another part of me really craves playing in a true meat grinder, where PCs are going to die, and every single inch of what we get, we've earned.
yeah,
And I kind of really do. It seems like the this Monday game or whatever is shaping up to be just that. So hey, it's going to be a tough world, and PCs are going to go into the graveyard. But you know what? The ones that come out with some gems and plunder from the dungeons are the ones that get to have a name at third level.
right, right, yeah, yes. I think that it will be a very full graveyard, especially with the first batch of characters I've seen being rolled up. Because first level in old school essentials is it's pretty rough. I mean it's actually rougher than DCC in a lot of ways, in every way, honestly. It's
Do you have a link to
You first.
Do you have a link to the basic character generation? I mean, if I don't have
well,
if I don't have it,
yeah. So if you
It's in the channel. Yeah.
if you pop into the Discord,
it's on the channel. Okay,
it's under resources and rules.
I'm sure
What
it's
is it?
familiar enough that I could just refer to it, and it's close enough to BX and AD&D to be familiar.
Shockingly so. Yes.
Okay.
What made you choose OSC over DCC?
Mostly just time. I figured that I could probably run OSC in less time than DCC, just because there's
Really?
less need for reference. Because I don't need to pull up spells that much or that meticulously.
Yes.
And
Okay.
crits and all that kind of stuff. And the players have a little bit less to fiddle with, so I won't have a bunch of new players that are like, okay, how does Mighty Deeds work? How does spell burn work? All those kinds of things. It's
Yes.
with
It's a lot.
yeah. Which
So it's much closer to traditional D&D then.
it's just Moldvay, dude. It's just Moldvay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Vance and Magic,
yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Can't be helped.
Save versus poison or death. Save versus.
Petrification,
Save or die.
polymorph. They're all save versus die.
I like the. When I first saw the old saving throws system, I was like, that's weird, but I really like it now, because it's like, all right, you're a first level cleric, those are your saving throws. Modify I think it's save versus spell by your wisdom, and that's it.
I'll tell you one thing. The first campaign I played, actually I played two. One was a homebrew that eventually got published. But the other one was Temple of Elemental Evil. And the village of Hamlet was what we played for the first 3 or 4 months. And we lost characters. I must have lost like 3 or 4 dwarven fighters until like, my 5th dwarven fighter stuck. But I mean,
that is
when we finally beat Lareth the Beautiful on Labor Day, there was just this cheer that came up from the table that everyone was on, that everyone was there. That you really, I don't think I really had a moment like that. Well, maybe one or two. That was like, we earned it. Like, we lost characters trying to get to this goal.
Mm-hmm.
And the DM was very good at, just taking what was there in the book and then just developing the world, just what was there in Hamlet, and just like repeated forays into the moat house. Like, we had a player lose 2 characters in the course of 5 minutes.
Nice.
Like, he went in and he opened the door and got bit by a spider, failed his poison save, and died. And then he rolled up another character, and because that new character was a half orc, no one really trusted him in the party, so they made him go down the stairs first. And he didn't notice the green slime that fell on him, and basically he turned into green slime. So basically he lost 2 characters in the span of 5 minutes, and it was great.
Jeez. Yep.
Yeah, it takes a certain kind of player to appreciate it.
That is true. But you know what? When I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It's like we have to be on point in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It was just like there wasn't a lot of fiddliness. It was like you had your stats, you had your hit point, you had your AC and saving throws, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So basically,
a 10-foot pole and a lantern.
Right, and it's you and your party against the world, and you have to be on your game. And even then, it might not be enough. And I love that. That's how it should be.
And the dice are not your friends.
Right. So basically, you have to take calculated risks and hope it works out. And if not, you know what? Roll up another character.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's really what I'm hoping to achieve with this. I'm hoping to. Like, having dungeons that, there's probably going to be, like, all the characters die. They might learn a little bit about the dungeon. And then maybe the next group can learn from what the last players learned. And
you best have a box of tissues handy for the first character death.
I don't know because I think that they're all kind of ready for it, but we'll see. Because most of the people that I've been kind of attracting to the idea, they seem to be of that vein. But you never know, because I've had so many instances where I think we're on the same page, and then we're about to start playing, and something goes tragically wrong.
Mm-hmm. You do never know.
That is true.
Go talk to your wife. I gotta go talk to.
All right.
This was fun.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I really didn't know what to expect, and this turned out to be pretty entertaining.
Well, I'm glad that it didn't fall flat, because it's so that's 2 for 2 that I've felt pretty good about with Morkborg. And this was it's a 1-page dungeon. I was like, this would be really good to just run a session, because I do a lot of I do a lot of I've done a lot of quote unquote one shots that actually ended up being like 2 or 3 shots, or we just never finished because it just took too long. But this was the first time I did a 1-pager, and it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. But it taught me, like, so I've heard a lot of people say that you can reasonably expect your players to go through about 5 or 6 rooms in a session. And this is a 6-room dungeon, so it seemed to be about right.
Indeed. Okay. Go home. You can't stay here.